Chag Sameach. It's Reuven Ebrahimoff in my special Shalosh Regalim mode. Normally, I'm talking on Shabbat, but there's another time that Haftorahs are read, on Yom Tovs. Shalosh Regalim, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, all have special Haftorot. What is the Haftorah for the first day of Pesach? Well, they pick from the book of Yehoshua. Yes, Moses' successor. Very interesting stories, plural, are taking place in this Haftarah. Yehoshua, Moses' successor, is now chosen for this Haftarah. Why? Because they are celebrating Pesach, Korban Pesach, as a nation once they've entered into the land of Israel. Now, if you look at the Haftarah and you start reading it, what you probably won't realize is that it comes from 3 different sections, 3 different chapters in the book of Yehoshua. So it skips, and then it tells a story, then it skips, and then it tells a story, and then it skips. So I'm here to help you understand what happens. So the first part of it is from Perek Gimel, chapter 3 of Yehoshua. And Vayomer Yehoshua Elam Hiskadsho Ki Machar Yaseh Hashem Bekirbechem Niflaot. So he's telling the Jewish people. The Haftarah begins that they are on the east side of the Jordan River, and he's saying, prepare yourselves. You are about to go into the land of Israel. And that Yehoshua speaks to the Kohanim, the priests, and he says, carry the Aron of the bris, v'ivru lifnei ha'am, and cross in front of the nation, v'yisu Aron ha'bris, v'yelchu lifnei ha'am, and they go in front of the nation with the Ark of the Covenant. Yes, the one featured in the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. Just kidding, rabbis. And what happens is that they cross over the Yarden, the Jordan River. Wow. Wait a minute. Didn't we have the miracle of the splitting of the seas when you left Egypt? Yes. There's a second time that the Yarden, it itself stops running, and that the Jewish people go from the Aver HaYarden, the Transjordan, into the land of Israel. And that God spoke to Yehoshua and says, you will now be recognized as the great leader. How are you going to fill Moshe Rabbeinu's sandals? There's no way to fill them. You are the new appointed leader. It wasn't patrilinear. It wasn't like you have in the Middle East and other situations where the sons take over for their fathers. This is a new man that they picked, Yehoshua, and everybody's like, who are you compared to Moshe? So now, Yehoshua is getting God's support as far as him being acknowledged as the leader of the new nation, taking them into the land of Israel. Part 1. Now, here's what happened. We were commanded to give every child that is a zachar, a male, brit milah. Now, they left Mitzrayim, they left Egypt, and they did no brit milah for 39 years, or the 40 years that they were in the desert. What's going on? The Bnei Yisrael became fearful that if they do brit milah, and then the goyim, the enemies, or Hashem even says you have to move to the next place, they were afraid that the Chamsin would blow sand on the brit milah, and they would get infected and sick. So they stopped doing brit milah. Part 1 of the thought. What now happens as far as Korban Pesach? You cannot do a Korban Pesach b'li brit milah. So can you imagine this? This great miracle of the Exodus. They go to Mount Sinai. They get the whole Torah. They are now in the desert for 40 years. And guess how many times they kept Pesach? 1. The first year. For 39 more years, no Pesach. So now, what do you have to do? It now says in the Haftarah, this explains everything, that Yehoshua did Brit Milah on all of Am Yisrael, on the entire Jewish people. And that so much from when they would cut off during the Brit Milah, that they called the place Givat Ha'aralot, that this was the hill of whatever he cut off, that it became like high like a mountain. So many people need to have a circumcision. And that now, Yehoshua describes that all the people that left Egypt. Now do some numbers. If everybody that left Egypt didn't make it into the land of Israel, they all passed away. Just pick a number, 600,000 men between the age of 20 and 50. Okay, fine. You had a very, very young nation, because the average age was 20. If everybody cycled through, and somebody died the first year and some other people died the second year, you have a very young nation. So he had a lot of work to do. So now what happens is that they were in the desert for 40 years, and I explained to you why they didn't do the Brit Milah. So now they did the Brit Milah. Vayom Hashem el Yehoshua Hayom Galosi et Charpat Mitzrayim Ma'alechem. That now you are a nation that are ready to go into the land of Israel and keep the Pesach, having done the Brit Milah. Vayasu et HaPesach ba'arba'a asar yom lachodesh be'erev ba'aravot Yericho. So they had crossed in. It's left out of this Haftorah, but what happened is they crossed into the land of Israel, and at the outskirts of the city of Jericho, they did the Korban Pesach for the first time in 39 years. Vayishpos Haman mimacharat. That what happened is the manna from heaven that dropped for 40 years or appeared at the front of their tent doors for 40 years ceased. They're in the land of Israel. They don't need God's support as far as food goes. They're in the land of Eretz Zavat Chalav Udavash. They're in the land of milk and honey. Now, the third part of the Haftarah. Vayhi bios Yoshua b'Yericho. Joshua is by Yericho. Vayisa einav. He lifts up his eyes. Vayar, and he sees v'hinei ish omed lenegdo. And there's a man standing apart, across from him. V'charbo shalufa, and his sword is drawn biyado. Vayelech Yehoshua elav. And Joshua walks up to him, and he says, Vayomelo, halanu ota im letza'arenu. He says to the man, are you here to help me, or are you here to give me tzaras? The guy looks back at him. Vayomer, lo, no, ki ani tsar seva Hashem. I am from the army of God, and I am here to help you. Yehoshua, vayipol Yehoshua al panav arza vayishtachavu. He falls down on his face and he bounds down. Ma adoni medaber el avdo. Whatever it is that you want to ask of your servant. Vayomer sartzava Hashem el Yehoshua. Shal na'alcha. Take off your shoe. Woo! Back, rewind. What did God say to Moses by the burning bush? Take your shoes off. Here, take your shoe off, and because this place is that you're standing on is holy. Kodesh hu vayash Yehoshua came. This land is holy. Take your shoe off, Yehoshua. And then it says, V'yericho sogeret u'misugeret b'nei Yisrael ein yotzei ve'ein ba. V'hi Hashem es Yehoshua v'hi shema'o b'chol ha'aretz. So here it's the description of how he meets this angel that's going to help him conquer the city of Jericho. I always found it fascinating that we all know the story of Jericho and Joshua and the walls of Jericho come tumbling down, and yet it's not in any of the Haftorahs. So please, if you'd like to hear the story, let me know. Chag Sameach.